Hello everyone, I'm back, March 18th, like at 10 o'clock at night, just about. Anyway, competitions are over for now, Arnold Classic in Boston, and you guys all know the results, so I'm not going to touch the subject unless somebody asks in the next week or so. But let's focus on a few questions here. First, if I have no appetite and cannot eat enough protein during a day, can I substitute it with the protein shakes? And would that be anyhow inferior to solid food sources of protein? Okay, so you heard me say this probably many times, right? solid food, the old-fashioned way. Let's face this one. All the macronutrients that we take, carbs, fat, proteins, have to come down to the elemental components. Carbohydrates go down to the monosaccharide glucose, right? Well, protein that you're asking for, what is protein? It's a peptide of many amino acids binded together, right? So, if you eat any high protein source food, chicken, turkey, fish, beef, eggs, milk, I don't care. What are you going to get? You're going to get amino acids from it. I had recently some interview with Ron Harris. Yeah, I just remember Ron Harris for Muscular Development, and he asked a similar question because a lot of guys nowadays not eating, he thinks that they should eat. And I told him, look, I had examples of some clients that would come to me and they say they can eat, but they drink 5 shakes a day. 5 shakes a day. And then I remember Eddie Moisen back in the day, he was in my gym. Freaky, incredible muscle mass, everything, and he says he can eat, and he was actually drinking 7 times protein shake and eat just like 1 meal a day. Somebody mentioned Lee Labrada, and now his son, Hunter Labrada. If you watch Hunter's Instagram, quite often he puts his diet to a T. He is transparent, open cards, telling everybody what he's doing. And yes, he's been, having a lot of shakes, every day. So is this anyhow inferior? So you tell me, if these are like amino acids, and you have a chicken, a turkey, or beef, or whatever, and it takes hours to digest that protein and to break down into the elemental amino acids, right? Would that methionine, or arginine, or lysine, or isoleucine, valine, histidine, whatever, is this going to be different if it comes from one source than another? My wife is Japanese, and she tell all the Japanese bodybuilders, no, you have to eat, don't drink shakes, it's not the same. But here's the difference. If you have a high quality, reputable company, protein powder, and it is what it's supposed to be, so if label matches the quality, right, then absolutely, positively, for me, it would be just as valuable. As you know, it takes hours to digest some, like let's say beef or a wild game, and which I love eating. And when you need the quick amino acids, then you have to, manipulate and have maybe some protein shakes in between, protein shakes with the meal. So if you can have 60 grams of protein per meal, can you eat 30 and drink 30? Yeah, it's quite a good idea. You know that I'm very vocal about essential amino acids, because I do think that essential amino acids are the most important supplement that you can take. And actually, for that reason, we eat protein, right? Because when you digest protein, you get amino acids, and essential cannot be made in your body. That's why they're essential. You must take them, through the food. Non-essential can be manufactured. So yes, can you substitute the solid protein source with either protein shakes, high-quality protein shakes, or essential amino acids? Absolutely, positively, you can. And I have many examples of high-level guys that can eat, they just don't have appetite. And I would tell them, it's okay. Just make sure that you have enough, that you have a constant influx of amino acids into the bloodstream. Think about this. When you have constantly sufficient and anything that body needs physiologically, any enzyme or hormone to be made, to skin, liver, heart, hair, bones, muscles, you have all available. Would I like to say this? Physiological preference of putting those essential amino acids, if there is limited amount, would be everything else before muscle, right? Muscle is the last option, it's the least needed. Everything else would take a priority. Like I said, physiologically, the most important thing for a body, human body, is energy source. And that's why body likes to store the energy, stores the carbs as a glycogen in the muscle and liver, stores the body fat, right? And storing the protein into the muscle tissue. This is actually extra protein stored that then body can degrade it and release it, and lower amount of muscle, so you can have more energy, or those amino acids can be used for other physiological needs that take priority over the muscle. This is what I keep saying. Have a high protein intake, and yes, I was suggesting 2 grams per pound of body weight. Way more than any doctors would tell you, but yes, trust me on that one. Those RDA recommendations are not done on athletes, on bodybuilders, but just for average Joe. It doesn't have a need to have a increased protein intake for increased muscle protein synthesis, right? He doesn't need that. If you're gonna make a small house, you need a few bricks. If you're gonna make a mansion, you need much more. So if I tell you, 5 bricks is enough, yeah, for a doghouse, not for a mansion you wanna live in. Okay, that's about that for protein. I think I said so many times. Does anyone still use Thymu-Case? I know it was big in the 90s. Well, I come from 90s, and I'll tell you, yeah, I used it. I used it religiously back in the day. I heard it from Serge Nubret, Black Prince, if you guys remember. He was known for his conditioning, aesthetics, fabulous physique and everything else, but yeah, he used Thymu-Case, and not the Thymu-Case cream. It was actually Thymu-Case injectable, and I used it in the 90s every time when I would have. I think it's discontinued. I don't think you can find it. I encourage anybody, if they can find it. It works like, oh my God. Those Thymu-Case creams were sold in many nutritional supplement stores. I remember even not so far away as anti-cellulite creams. And I remember back talking to Tom Platz, and before Thymu-Case there was some other. Thymu-Case is mucopolysaccharidase enzyme, and they had a Vidase, earlier. And I don't know exactly who used it, because I came to US in late 80s, 87. But there's a lot of little tricks that all those guys were using, even in the 70s and 80s. I think I mentioned that story once, that 90, oh my God, where was it? Galaxy 94, I think, or 93. I was in that Miss Galaxy contest, and you know, somebody called me from behind and kind of said my name, but I didn't really, I wasn't sure, so I turned around and it was, oh my God, Frank Zane, my idol. And he actually called my name, and I was like, me? And I said, yeah. So, of course, I was delighted. One of the highlights, you know, my career, talking to Frank. And I know that stupidly in a conversation once, I said, oh yeah, well, if you guys back then used what we use now, maybe it would be a different story. And then he cut me off with, what makes you think we didn't? Like, ooh, okay, you know. So I'm sure there was so many secrets even back in the day. But yeah, for time case, injectable, I was using 3 ampoules a day for the last like 30 days. And oh my God, I was, well, especially at 94, I had a sufficient amount, 94 Olympia. You can see daily changes in skin. Was just a transparent, you know, onion skin type. Then I heard very efficiently, you know, some other guys were using Tamikase suppositories, and that was very, very effective. It's just who wants to use the suppositories. But as far as cream, yeah, it was used. I just don't think it's as effective. I mean, some people would use it with DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide, that transdermal agent, that anything you put, it would, you know, transfer to the skin more efficiently, more potently. But yeah, does anyone still use this? I don't know. I, you know, tell my guys if you can find it. I mean, look, maybe somebody is producing even nowadays. And if they don't, maybe they should. It would be very, very popular. Okay, enough of that. Oh, does potassium loading work for competitions? Wouldn't that be dangerous? Good question. My coach told me he wants me to use slow K to potassium load once we start loading. He said Andreas Munzer used it and he was super dry. Oh, important, super important question. Okay. I just had the pleasure of meeting Andreas Munzer, and he was super friendly with me. And, you know, many times I rode with Cross and we did talk. As you guys can imagine, of course, I was interested. Andreas Munzer is most ripped guy in the history of bodybuilding, the driest, you know, you could possibly imagine. And yeah, I mean, I would lie if I say that I didn't actually try what he suggested. And maybe a lot of Germans would confirm that. Yes, he was kind of potassium load. But the danger and something that didn't make sense was that he would use spironolactone, aldactone, potassium-sparing diuretic. So when you use potassium-sparing diuretic, you spare the potassium, you accumulate potassium, right? Your choice of carbohydrate loading, any carb that you're going to choose is already, you know, quite high with potassium. And then if you take high potassium like banana or dates and stuff like that, you can get yourself in trouble. So 1992 Arnold Classic, I used it and I was in crazy condition. I mean, I'm not gonna say crazy. I never reached Munzer's conditioning, but you know, I was very happy with conditioning and dryness and fullness and everything else, but I was on the stage, and then I don't know if any of you guys get the cramp in the chest. I got the cramp in the chest, and my arms was locked in. Oh my God, so I had to like unlock it. And then I got in the lower back, like, oh, so you have to stretch it. You have the abs, you have a hamstring, like, oh my God, I just know that I can't panic. And I pull it off anyway, and then of course I had to take a quick loop diuretic after prejudging for the finals to wash off all this extra potassium, because I said this story, and it's very important that people that didn't hear it maybe hear it. It was 2004 Mr. Olympia, and I didn't work with Mustafa Mohammed at that time. I just knew the guy from some other shows, very friendly, and he competed in that show, and I had crazed him. I had Gustavo Badel, who placed third at Olympia, so they were celebrating right after, and I get the phone call from Sean Ray to tell me, like, oh, come to the room, whatever, 505 or something like that. And it was Mustafa is cramping, right? So it's okay, now this is super important. I ran there and really, and I have to say this, back in 1992, I witnessed death of Mohammed Benaziza, who was incredible bodybuilder, and he was hyperkalemic. Actually, long story short, he was dehydrated. Doctor over there assumed if you are dehydrated, more than likely you're hypokalemic. You need to replenish your electrolytes and minerals. And apparently he injected me with potassium. And this is, you know, what happened. I witnessed it. I was in a room with all the guys. Porter Coachella was paramedic. He was trying to, you know, give him CPR and all that stuff. But anyway, so I had that experience of seeing what hyperkalemia can do. So when I came to the room of Mustafa Mohammed, first thing I asked him what diuretic he was taking, and sure enough, he was taking spironolactone. Spironolactone, aldactone, and usually was taken back in 90s, even for like a couple of weeks. You start slowly and then build it up, or at least for a week. I was using just like 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday before a contest. But he was using quite a bit of amount, and no other diuretic. And he was loading up on, because he's from Austria, so probably he heard that method. High potassium and aldactone, which is heart attack waiting to happen. Sean Ray called the paramedics. Paramedics came, and they were gonna inject Mustafa with electrolytes containing also potassium. And knowing what happened to Momo Benaziza, I did not allow it. So I interfered, and they pushed me away. Get out of the room. You're interfering with the emergency medical situation. You know, it's life and death. I said, yes, exactly. It's a life and death. If you inject him in any potassium, more than likely you're going to kill him. And then, of course, they didn't. I went with Mustafa in the paramedics' car, that was in Las Vegas, went to the hospital. Doctor came to complain, like, sir, I understand you were interfering with the emergent medical procedure. I say, yes, sir. I'm going to just tell you, he's hyperkalemic. Please check his potassium. I don't know how many minutes later, doctor came and said, oh my God, you saved his life. Okay, because he would also not check. I mean, this is 2004. So if you guys heard the story, sorry, I know I repeat myself, I'm old, like every old person. You repeat the same stories over and over. But no, this is super, super important, is you even mentioned now slow K. And I'll tell you, yeah, slow K, I know when I traveled 92 to Chicago, probably Niagara Falls presentation, it was Porter Cottrell. Porter would know this very, very well. And we exchange, what we were doing. Porter was also asking too many questions, and I would always tell the truth. So I asked him, and he was taking a Aldactazide, but he would load with Slow K. And I know many other guys that would take this as well. It's one of those potassium loading methods. It's outdated. I don't think anybody nowadays is using this anymore. And again, I will tell you, hyperkalemia, too much potassium, can stop your heart and can kill you. And it happened multiple times in our sport. So it's super dangerous. No, you cannot use aldactone, spironolactone, load like crazy with carbohydrates that contain potassium, and then take extra potassium pills, tablets, capsules, Slow K, or any type of potassium. It is super, super dangerous. In that case, when we went to the hospital, right, and doctor realized that, and he actually, thanked me for it. I know that many people from IBB organization came. They were very concerned, and actually they thought that maybe I was the one that caused this, but I didn't even know. Mustafa was just there to help. 1 week later, in Amsterdam, I was going there to Amsterdam, and here was Mustafa again. I say, hey, my brother. I say, hey, Mustafa, okay, you want to check my condition? So I went into the hotel room, and as soon as I came in, there was like enough bananas and dates to make half of the Austria, where he's from, diabetic. It was like, oh my God. Mustafa, which diuretics you're taking? Aldactone. Oh, okay, can you please take off some potassium with some little bit of loop or a different diuretic? He didn't want to, because, he knew what he was doing. Prejudging already, Mustafa is white as a ghost, cramping up, can't really, there's no life in his eyes and everything. He finished the contest. He qualified for Olympia, made top 3, right? And I remember I was there with Chris Dim, and we were going to go out. It's Amsterdam, for the love of God, right? Next day we were going to England, but we had a few hours. So a few hours in Amsterdam is like, you know what I mean. And I said, okay, let's just swing by Mustafa's room, just in case. Well, guess what? Guess who was in the room? Ronnie Coleman was in the room. I don't know even how he found out it, but maybe he heard Mustafa again screaming, yelling or something, and he came there. So like, oh my God, deja vu, the same thing. Cramped up everywhere, no muscle is not cramped. Like, oh, paramedics came in and, same thing. They were going to inject him right away. I didn't allow it at this time. I went in the ambulance together with Steve Weinberger. Steve and I went to this hospital, and doctor that was there, he was not so nice and polite, but when he heard, what did you take, potassium load and take aldactone. So he says, why don't you just take the gun and shoot yourself? This is how obviously dangerous this was. But anyway, to answer your question, should you potassium load? You are already potassium loading with your high carbohydrate sources that you're going to be carb loading. Do you need extra potassium? No. Should you take Slow K? Too dangerous. Have I used it? Yes. I got lucky and got away with it. So you might not be that lucky. Okay, guys, this is it for this episode. So please ask questions. I actually didn't see new questions, much new questions. That's why I'm not here so often. If I would see more questions, I would answer more. Until next time, that's it. Have fun.